Goodbye, Die. Everyone hated you. Which is something I didn't think I'd ever get to say, frankly. People who don't know what DIE is, it's obviously diversity, inclusion, and equality, all that crap. And it's actually dying, which is good news, I think. We'll start off just by mentioning something, which is something new on the website, of course, lotus.com. The interview with Richard Tice that Bo did recently, which I'm mentioning because, well, it's always nice to have some people, I think he's the most recent chap, who's in the opposition, actual opposition that exists in this country, and in which case it's nice to have him on.
That's good that you got him, and it's quite based that he would come on.
Yeah. And but now we have to go for a local man, who has no time for chill, and can get away with it. We have Rakib over here, who, oh boy, this is going to be fun. He decided to write this article, and this is how we're going to set up why I think Die is definitely dying.
Yeah, I love it when I come here when it's Callum, because he's like, he was going to do a thing on why Russia's good. He took that one out. It's like, I'll put the multiculturalism one in instead. Like, anything to do, end Nick's career.
Well, we were having some banter beforehand, and you were like, oh, you'll probably write this or write that, haha. And I was just like, yeah, what if I wrote this and this, so that will get you cancelled? And I'm like, hey, what if I try? So, went with this. So in 2023, we need a reckoning with multiculturalism. Oh boy. He says here, from Telford to Leicester, the poisonous influence of multiculturalism was impossible to ignore this year. Other than that, that's the year roundup.
I like the way it's this year. Yeah. What trends were there this year? Racial violence on the streets.
Every other year. Britain remains a successful multi-ethnic, multi-faith society, he writes, but 2022 served up several brutal reminders of how quickly social cohesion can unravel under the impact of divisive ideology and multiculturalism. Thing is, I got to stop him there. I don't know how that works, to be honest, mate. You can't sit there and be like, well, we are a successful multi-ethnic, multi-faith society, but also there's massive ethnic and faith-based conflicts going on. But they're not going on all the time. It's like, well, come on, man. Like,
well, that's him doing his crude and misjudged. That's him just hedging it a little bit just to make it palatable.
So this place is successful, not often successful, but still successful. I mean, not often successful doesn't sound like success to me, but whatever. He says, until this summer, Leicester has been widely regarded as a paragon of multicultural success. Sorry, but...
And the sentence just before that I liked, he said it could prove a watershed moment for community relations in modern Britain. I'm thinking, it won't, though. Yeah. Nothing will happen.
we know what the future holds, which is, funnily enough, when you had a conflict this long, let's take Serbs and Albanians. Historically get along. Most recently, love each other, I heard. Anyway, but when I was living in Canterbury, the local authorities seemed to think the same thing. They'd taken quite a lot of Serbs and Albanians, I think from the Yugoslav wars, and apparently they'd put them together in the same sort of area. And now all their kids were going to the same schools, the same primary school. And it got so bad at one point that the Albanians and Serbs parents turned up with knives one day, and were all shouting and screaming at each other in foreign, unintelligible language, and the school had to call the police. It's almost as if you could have seen this coming. And frankly, I don't care what, the official line was on how well everything was going with trying to integrate Indians and Pakistanis into Leicester. I think we knew the outcome of that one eventually.
Yeah, and it was just sort of Epcot centre of probably every problem from around the world plays out in microcosm.
But if you get like a load of Argentinians and a load of Mongolians, I mean, like, who knows what's going to happen there? But you get a bunch of Serbs and Albanians, and it's like, well, I can have a guess.
Yeah,
perhaps. Anyway,
bit of a town planning issue. Carry on.
That's how I'm going to refer to it in future. There's been another town planning issue. This time in Rotherham, I think. Anyway, indeed, just a few weeks before the unrest erupted, the University of Leicester announced plans to hold a series of events celebrating its migratory history and diverse population. A very recent change. John Williams from the University Units for Diversity, Inclusion and Community Engagement, DICE. He's added another letter in there, so it doesn't sound like die. That's clever. Said at the time of the inward migration, it has now transformed Leicester from a tired and nondescript city into a thriving multicultural success, which just happens to now have racial and ethnic conflict that it didn't have before. That's what I call success. Whereas the English city that was there before was tired and nondescript. I mean, I would have thought the description would be English, That's
Yeah.
nondescript,
I
apparently.
think I'd take nondescript at this point in our culture. You know what I mean? Nondescript seems like halcyon days now. You know, when life was nondescript, you probably don't. You're too young.
Well,
Life used to be nondescript, Callum, and not that much happened. It
I'm
was
thinking
great.
Hot Fuzz without the like weird cult that runs through the village.
I haven't seen it, but I believe
You
you.
haven't seen Hot Fuzz?
No, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's my turn to bully
yeah,
someone
yeah,
for
yeah.
a
You haven't
movie.
seen Fight Club.
Oh, well, we don't talk about it. Anyway, numerous early reports suggested that the disorder was initially sparked by disturbances following the Asia Cup cricket match, which everyone in England cares about, between India and Pakistan on blah, 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 blah. But Rob Nixon, now the chief constable of Leicester Police, has since said that the tensions were actually about before the cup. They were simmering for a while, he says.
Been a while, yeah.
Almost as if you take a lot of Pakistanis and Indians, put them in a town together, halfway across the world, they might bring some baggage. I wonder why tensions were simmering. It wasn't just local cricket fans up and about having a bit of a scuffle. No.
It was the age-old conflict between two nations. I love that. It's been simmering for a while, this guy. Kind of forever.
About I don't know, 1,400 years, something like that. Tensions between India and Pakistan over the disputed area of Kashmir have provided one source of antagonism between Hindus and Muslims. Just one of them. There's a few others. How long have you got? Exactly. Nixon has also pointed to a growing distance between both communities' traditional religious leaders and younger generations, leaving a vacuum that has been filled by social media personalities who peddle ultra-religious identity politics. Well, I don't do the identity.
No, you don't do the religious bit.
I don't do the religious either.
You're just an extreme online personality.
It's just like, why don't you go for a visit? Trust me, it's good. Anyway, but also I had no idea that these things took place. Who could have seen? All of this is very worrying. But to understand why an ultra-religious identity politics has flourished in Leicester among young Muslims and Hindus, or why they appear to have a great affinity with India and Pakistan, but not Britain, one needs to take a look at the root cause: multiculturalism. Now, chap, you are correct. But at the same time, I've got to keep saying it. Who didn't see this coming? Come on, guys. I'm trying to think of other flashpoint ethnicities. Maybe Ukrainians and Russians. We'll move those all in a flat share in London, and I'm sure it will go swimmingly. He continues, promoted through various national and local institutions, this ideology has encouraged people to think of themselves in terms of their ethnic and religious background. It has encouraged certain ethnic groups to identify with other nations, such as Pakistan or India, rather than the nation that they live. Well, which nation do they live in? Not which kingdom. Like, sure, they live in the United Kingdom, our kingdom, right? But which nation do they live in exactly? Like, if you're living in an area that is like 50-60% Hindu-Indian, or 50-60% Muslim-Pakistani, I mean, it ain't being funny, but it ain't that different from home. I mean, this is actually something we covered with Mirpuri Pakistanis. It's the funniest thing. I should send it to you afterwards. So Mirpur is a city in Pakistan where we've had like the most of our Pakistanis come from. It's a weird quirk that we have so much. But if you go to Mirpur, like, it's unbelievably British, which is hilarious because, like, them in England are very like, I miss Pakistan, but in Pakistan they're all like, yeah, I miss England. In fact, you can even pay in British pounds for like Cocoa Pops in the local shop, and the Cocoa Pops has the price in British pounds on it, like on the box, because
The empire never died.
No, it certainly didn't. They took it home, which is just really funny. Anyway,
So you're saying that they're sort of they're like the Seattle Autonomous Zone, they're separate little nations now within the alleged nation of England that used to exist.
I mean, Trevor Phillips has been making this point for all of like 20 years. I feel like it's fair in pointing it out. Anyway, he goes on to say that obviously there's that problem. And I just want to point out as well, this is well known. If we go to the next one here, we have Iran protests in London that got violent. Why? I mean, there is a long-standing like phraseology used about the English, which is they care about nothing but what happens on their damn island. And we just don't care about the foreigners. Known for it, like every other ethnic group on Earth is like, I care about international politics, I care about our neighbours, and the English are like, I don't. And yet we have lots of protests about Iran. If you go to the next one here, whatever the hell this was, and the Albanians. I remember there's been like conflicts between different Afghans at one time, back before the new government, where there was Shia and Sunni Afghans fighting each other in London. I don't know if you remember seeing that footage.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Go on.
Were you just like, what dog in that fight do we have?
Well, yeah. Every time anything happens in Palestine, Israel, it's always a big protest on our streets.
Yeah,
And,
in London, you've got to talk about it.
yeah, and the Albanian one did bother people because it's not just the Albanian part, but putting the flag over Churchill That's when you're really taking the piss, isn't it?
Conquest.
As Douglas Murray said, every time you go after Churchill, you're going after our national hero. The real guy had problems like anyone, but it's our national mythology, right?
Yeah. But we'll go back to the article because he says the problems created by multiculturalism are only more likely to become more pronounced if the latest UK census data is anything to go by. They show that Britain is becoming ever more ethnically and religious diverse a society. Now the thing is, though, on the ethnic front especially, let's be frank, that just means a more divided society, because if we were not becoming more ethnically diverse, if people coming here were then integrating into the ethnic group that are the English and the British, the census data would be stagnant. Like, there wouldn't be an increase. It would be like people integrating at the same rate they're coming in which case you would not be becoming more divided. And that's fundamentally, if we're just truthful about it, I mean, why do we have ethnic conflicts from around the world that we couldn't give a crap about? It's because there's more divisions. And why did that happen?
Yeah. And it's quite interesting that this is in spite. I mean, I've met Reki at GB, but because Spiked are Marxists ultimately. I mean, that's what they say they are, and it's quite.
Yeah, they're funny guys.
But it's interesting that they'll cover this now, because you could say, I know people think they're like right wing or libertarian, but they're not really. I think Brendan's a Marxist still. You know, I'm not sure if Tom is. Fraser, one of those is. I think maybe Fraser. So you know, it's quite interesting that they are covering stuff like this.
Certainly is. They go on. He goes on here to mention that the evidence of multiculturalism's failures aren't just in Leicester. He goes on to highlight, of course, the never-ending grooming gang scandals and so forth, and it won't ever end. But one of the things I had to mention is that when I was in Russia recently, I met a guy, and it was hilarious because he knows everything about the West. Like, he speaks English, there's understanding of what we're up to, and he's like, we were chatting about politics, and he started laughing at me. He was like, "Oh yeah, another thing. By the way, why are you guys doing diversity hiring?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "We used to have that in the Soviet Union." Like, his grandfather was, like, I think ethnically German or whatever, and then he tried to get into university, and he could, I believe, if I'm starting the story correctly, because he was an ethnic minority in the Soviet sector of Russia, he got a lowered score, like black Americans do, whereas if you're Russian, you get a higher score, like the Asian Americans do, and if you're Armenian, you're just in the middle, like the white Americans.
But theirs was the same, but it was just pro-Russia.
The exact same crap we did, but anti-Russian.
Right,
it was pro-ethnic minority.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah,
even in the Soviet Union.
Yeah. That's incredible. It's it's always chilling when people say, "Oh yeah, this is just like people from the Soviet Union." Say,
they're like, "No, we literally did this."
But I think we're transcending them now and becoming worse. I think that's where we're,
100%.
Slightly better cars, but it's basically the same. And by the way, just for the listener, when Callum says he was in Russia, he means he was in Ukraine, but he just doesn't acknowledge it. He calls it all Russia. We established
this was a chat in Moscow. Anyway, but the point is that if we go to the next one, I'm not kidding, it is getting worse, and you were absolutely on the money before you even knew it. Here you have it. White man applying for West Yorkshire Police is told we're only hiring women and minorities.
And
literal Soviet Union.
Everyone always says, can you do that legally? There's always the question that comes up, but it does just seem to go on.
Yeah, even if it's illegal.
One policeman successfully sued them, didn't he?
Yes. But that's the thing. Are you really going to sue? Really want that to be your life for the next 6 months?
Oh, yeah. 6 months, you're lucky in the court system now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They say in here, only ethnic minorities and women can apply at any time. Not at this time. It's not even the case that it's like, yeah, we're doing this first for them, and then we'll expand the pool. At any time, is the direct quote from the police. Councillor Mark Thompson, Conservative, spoke out after a white man had applied for a job and was unable to have his application even progressed, as he did not belong to a minority group. The prospective recruit was told that his application would be held until a police officer recruitment was open for everyone.
Well, by the way, in our capital city, people who identify as white British are 36%. That is a minority group, isn't it? But you're saying because this was in the wrong town. Couldn't he argue that he is now a minority
They're
group?
also a minority if you just want to do like white as a category globally. But none of this makes any sense or matters.
Yes, a global minority.
White minority doesn't mean anything in the dictionary.
That's always a funny one, because that's now a phrase they use, isn't it? Global majority, because they say it's more empowering than minority, and that means, like, what's a non. But then why are you describing? That means white people are a minority. So when do we get our rights?
So you're literally saying you're trying to de-empower white people.
A minority, yeah.
Demoralize them?
You're crushing a minority. So a global minority. You're crushing them.
But anyway, I'd rather just, use like the accurate terms instead of playing word games. In response, Mayor Barbin just defended the police recruitment process, because of course he did. Quote, "When I became Mayor of West Yorkshire, I committed 100% to get our West Yorkshire police to reflect the communities we serve. And Aislinn Lowe has been exceptional Deputy Mayor, leading to the way as a woman of colour." That's all she is. She's usually like my pet or something. She's a woman of colour. She's not leading the way on anything else. She's crap at maths, like Diane Abbott. I mean, she can't, like, reform the police for toffee. You know, rapes are up, murders are up, but, you know, she's a woman of colour. I'm sorry, I just can't get over the way these people speak sometimes about their own supposed comrades. She understands more than most that we have to build trust if we are to police by consent, and that trust is built by representation. Like Maoist diatribe. Like, the policing will just be better if we're more brown. How? But you just believe me. That's ridiculous. It's a direction of travel, and I will not apologise for trying to get the police force to reflect the people we serve. That's the end of the map.
They're all criminals. Police have to be criminals now to accurately reflect the people they serve.
Well, actually, yeah, I suppose what percentage of the police are criminals in Yorkshire?
Well, that's true as well.
Because, well, they wouldn't be represented if it's not like, 20% or something. I'm joking. Anyway, but...
I thought you meant... Oh, go on, carry on.
It's the end of the matter as well. Like, the dude who has just had his job rejected for being white, he'll have to sue. That's his only route. And presumably, so will all the American comedic writers. I thought you'd enjoy this. Amy Schumer, John Oliver, and Trevor Noah, I'm sure the funniest people in comedy, the hottest. I mean, Jon Stewart on steroids, kinds of popular. They're amongst a set of more than 50 comedians and late-night hosts who have pledged to increase diversity, equality, and inclusion in comedy.
Because the writers are overwhelmingly white. And this is the thing that happened in comedy, even in the UK. You weren't allowed to be white anymore on the screen, with a few exceptions.
Now you can't even be white off the screen.
Yeah, but you could write for someone who wasn't white behind the scenes. Now, purge the whites out of the writing room. That's what I say.
I don't know what they're going to do about the white cleaners who have to clean up after them.
Is Amy Schumer going to still be white herself? And John Oliver, that's not quite clear in this.
They're allowed to, because they've got the right opinions until their kids try and get a job, and then their kids can't.
Amy Schumer, who Netflix had to change their rating system for because she had such bad ratings on her special. And Trevor Noah, who's never been funny, who could never be funny in a billion gazillion years. Yeah. John Oliver can be a reasonable.
I do love the way he says it is the current year. It's 2015, guys. Anyway, but they go on in here. I'm going to skip through it just because of the time's sake, but they basically just whine and say that not enough brown people. There we are. It's a very convincing argument. If you want to go read a billion words that say that, you can.
I love this. Late night writers' rooms have been historically overwhelmingly white. As if there's like a history of late night writers' rooms. Like, it's just not an important thing. It's not, you know what I mean? Like,
we've got the museum of late night writers' rooms.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Here you'll see the first script of the Jay Leno show. Don't go past the rope. Like, shut up.
Yeah, you're right. But anyway, the good news about dying is that if we go forward here, is that I've seen noticeably more of this. You have some like conservative minister on who is just confronted with, well, we don't have any money in the UK, so why are you spending 120 grand on a new head of diversity for the NHS?
Great question.
And you see like him just being awkward and be like, oh crap. He quibbles about, well, we do have to fight racism, don't we? It's like, oh, shut up. Shut your mouth. Like, this is not about fighting racism.
Yeah, I've heard people say, well, what about all this money we're spending on these kind of things? Couldn't it be, rerouted or whatever? And I always think that's overplayed because it's just not that much money in the scheme of our massive financial problems. But it is the thing you do day one, isn't it? Day one, all diversity, inclusion, equality. Oh, that's gone. That cut immediately.
It's not even insignificant. We went through it the other day, which is just like, you could actually, everyone who's on strike this Christmas, like nothing works for us this year, all of those people, you could give them a pay rise with inflation. That's more than they're asking for, if you just cut the dye budget from central government.
Wow. All the rail and the nurses?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
You can have them all back to work tomorrow.
Incredible.
That's what you got to do. Anyway, we go to the HR outlets who are on suicide watch because it is dying as we speak. How to keep dye out of the budget cuts. Yeah, okay. They say
how to keep the obvious first thing that should definitely be cut out of the cuts. That's hilarious.
They're like on their knees in this article. There's ample research to promote diversity, equality, and inclusivity leads to organizations becoming more profitable. Bollocks. Shut up. I don't believe that for a minute. There's also the Financial Times who have to come out and tell us about how to not have any financial sense. Recession is no excuse for going backwards on diversity. I mean, it's a pretty good one. Probably the best one.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if I can't feed my family, or I can at least have a brown friend. It's like, what? Wait, like, you don't need that. Like, it's not a status symbol.
No.
I don't know why you think like this.
Yeah, necessity is a pretty good reason to get rid of frivolous rubbish that no one likes.
Yeah. They say in here there's a conference in which someone talks about the fact, some conservative lord, in fact, talks about how the woke agenda is not something we should be cutting. It's like, okay, thank you, conservative. Many companies see the need to keep a focus on inclusivity and ESG in the workplace, but many voices are complaining about the resulting cost. It's like, yeah.
There is that.
Yeah, it is a pretty good reason. And time. And the burden is getting even louder, he writes.
A burden can't get louder.
Right.
Mixed metaphor. Carry on.
One chair even said that the public company model is broken because 70% of the board's agenda is typically on governance and regulation. Directors have to worry about their gender pay gap, whether it's gone up or down, and whether that might mean that they'll be written about in the Daily Express. So yeah, that's a pretty good reason to stop all this crap. Like, instead, try and make some money, lads. Certainly, what is troubling those in the boardroom is unlikely to be what's troubling many of their employees, who are likely to be facing below-inflation pay rises, women as well as disabled people and those from ethnic minorities or less affluent backgrounds. Yikes. Okay. are often among those the lowest paid, according to the Office for National Statistics. Which again, imagine thinking that employees desire to be paid the same rather than desire to be paid more. So no, I don't mind being poor if we're all poor.
It's back to the classic Thatcher thing, remember what she did in the
Rather be here.
You want this, and she want
He actually wrote that. Companies adopting the highest levels of diversity and inclusion tend to have higher productivity and performance, which can be crucial in difficult months. Don't believe your lying eyes. I mean, we can all see these people, their jobs. We've gone through it a million times. Like June Starprong, that was getting paid more than the PM.
Oh yeah.
What did she do? She worked 3.5 days a week. What was the work? We're still not really sure. She couldn't define it, so...
She was a presenter of a pop music show. When I was growing up, that's what she was. Now she's, like, running diversity policy. It's absolute madness.
She basically just went to Zoom meetings and had cocktail dinners.
It's incredible.
It was very tough. Very tough. Anyway, he continues to whine in here about the fact that we've got to do more to defend diversity because it's going to hell. And frankly... it can stay there, is all I'm thinking, and I'm glad it's dying. And if you are someone who, pinned your entire life to promoting diversity, inclusion, and equality, bye-bye. Enjoy getting a job. Learn to code.
Thanks for watching that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters. I hope you're having a very jolly Christmas right now. If you enjoyed that and want to find more, you can go to our website, Lotus Eaters, and become a member for as little as £5 per month. That'll get you access to all of our premium content. But we do have other content as well, including this recent interview that Bo has done with Az, otherwise known as Heels versus Babyface, where they are talking about the state of pop culture and the media industry as a whole right now. So that's very interesting. Check that out. If you'd like to find more of what we're doing on the regular, you can follow us on social media at Getter at lotuseaters_com. Thank you very much and take care.